The next core principle is that happiness is only possible with enlightenment. So if you're not enlightened, don't kick yourself too much for not being happy. It's actually not possible. Happiness comes with enlightenment. Now, that doesn't mean you can't improve your level of happiness. Of course you can, and you should. You should work to increase your happiness as much as you can, even though you won't be able to really lock in your happiness without enlightenment. You don't even know what true happiness is without enlightenment. But also what this principle demonstrates to you is why enlightenment is so important. Because what you ultimately want is happiness. And the only way you're going to get it is through enlightenment. So don't put enlightenment off for too long. Another related principle is that no material possessions will ever make you happy. This is impossible. This is like a law of physics. This is like more certain and reliable than Newton's law of gravity or Einstein's equations of E equals mc squared. This is more certain than that. No material possession will ever make you happy, no matter what it is. Cars, houses, money, yachts. But not just that. Also, the stuff that you normally wouldn't consider material, like relationships, family, knowledge, the acquisition of knowledge, travel. You think travel is not material? Well, I'm including all of that under the label of material here. None of that stuff will make you happy. Guaranteed. Impossible. The sooner you can accept that, the much better your life will go. If you haven't yet understood this principle, you're going to be chasing for many, many years. You're going to waste decades of your life. The next related core principle is be happy all by yourself. Train yourself to be happy all alone, just sitting doing nothing. That doesn't mean you have to be a loner for your whole life. You can socialize and have fun with friends, that's okay. But if you can't be happy just sitting on your couch doing nothing, you really can't be happy. All the other stuff is just temporary little boosts, little shots of adrenaline and excitement. Little drugs, really, that are distracting you from doing the inner work you got to do to just be happy sitting there by yourself on a couch for an hour or two, or a whole day, or a whole week. The next core principle is keep your life simple and Spartan. Don't overclutter your life, not just with objects, but also with all kinds of social obligations and commitments, family and a bunch of kids and all of this. Now, that doesn't mean there's a problem with having kids and family. Of course you can have those things, but just be mindful of the fact that anytime your life sort of frees up, your ego mind tends to want to fill it with just any kind of distraction or activity. What you want to do is you want to minimize your life, and I have a whole video called Lifestyle Minimalism. Check that out. Minimize your life so that you have room, several hours every day to do self-improvement and to meditate and do spirituality, maybe do some psychedelics, this sort of stuff, so that you can work on everything we're talking about here, right? Everything we're talking about here, the implementation of all these principles requires a lot of free time and work, which most people waste on various kinds of frivolous activities. You know, don't buy a house too big that you don't really need, because you're going to waste time cleaning that house, maintaining that house, doing all this stuff, when really buy a smaller house instead, so that you waste less of that time doing that and instead spend more time working on yourself. Because remember, the really good stuff is the inner game. Changing the inner game is really what's going to make you happy and satisfied and get you all the other stuff that you want, not having a big palatial mansion house. The next core principle is that without practice and exercises and techniques, there will be no results. Theory alone, while important to know what to do, will not in itself produce much results. Like 95% of your results will come from the practices and exercises and techniques, not from the theory. That doesn't mean the theory is pointless. The theory is very useful, but you got to go beyond that. And as far as techniques go, let me share with you the most powerful techniques that I have discovered. Very simple. I'm not going to hold them back from you. Psychedelics, meditation, meditative yoga, journaling, contemplation, visualization, and solo retreats. These are the most powerful techniques that I've discovered in the last 5 or 10 years of doing this work. For me, now for you, there might be other techniques, but these are pretty solid and consistent techniques. These techniques have been proven by thousands and millions of people to produce some of the biggest gains that you can get in your life. Some of the biggest transformations come from these techniques. And notice that most of these techniques are inner techniques. Even psychedelics seems like an outer technique, but it's an inner technique. It's an outer technique which triggers an inner process. And the final principle, and a very important one, is do not turn actualize.org into an ideology. Actualize.org is not meant to be an ideology. It's not meant to really be a philosophy or a system of any kind. It's not meant to have any rigid principles or rules. You're not supposed to follow these 65 principles that I gave you like the 10 Commandments. Nothing like that, because that would violate principle number 1, which is ideology and dogma. So I have to be careful every time I speak that it doesn't turn into that. And of course, I have to play my part, but you have to play your part. Because I can do everything in my power, but then you can still turn what I say into an ideology or into a dogma. And in fact, that's what most people do. So you have to be very careful not to turn actualize.org into another religion. See, to be able to implement all the stuff I talked about above, you need to be very intelligent about it, and you need to be very thoughtful and mindful. And you need to be very context sensitive. You see, it's not a formula that you just kind of like follow. It's not a robotic thing that you do. It requires consciousness. It requires active participation every single day that you're implementing this stuff. And also, of course, the reason I say this is because actualize.org teachings have certain limitations. It's still a perspective. Even though I cover hundreds of perspectives and I compile them together, it's still a perspective. It's still coming from me. It still has certain limitations and biases that I have and stuff that I got to work through. And of course it has that, which is why you got to be careful and you got to look at other sources and not turn this into an ideology.